Let me start with a simple question a lot of seniors are seeing online. Is the government really sending every senior a $5,000 savings check in December? Did the DOGE project uncover enough waste to pay Americans directly? It's an exciting idea, especially when grocery prices, utilities, and medical costs continue to rise. But today, we are doing something different. We are not guessing, we are not repeating headlines, and we are not sharing rumors. We're breaking down the real story so you know exactly what is official, what was estimated, and what was only discussed. And here's the interesting part. There is one change happening in December that affects millions of seniors' monthly budgets, but most people are focused on the wrong news. That's why I encourage you to stay with me. Halfway through, we'll talk about the update that truly matters and how it can impact what you keep each month. Let's get started. Calmly, clearly, together. What was DOGE and why people hopeful? You may have heard of a project called DOGE. Back in January 2025, the federal government, under President Trump, announced this new government efficiency initiative. The idea was to identify wasteful spending, cut unnecessary contracts and bureaucracy, and save a lot of taxpayer money. To many Americans, especially seniors dealing with rising prices for food, medicine, and utilities, this idea offered hope. And when business magnate Elon Musk was brought in to lead or consult on DOGE, that hope grew even stronger. After all, he was widely seen as someone who gets big things done quickly. In public statements, DOGE supporters made bold claims. First, they talked about saving $2 trillion, then the figure shifted to $1 trillion, later $150 billion, and finally some updates mentioned over $200 billion in potential savings, depending on which report or spokesman you heard. Naturally, many people began to wonder, if the government can find that much waste, could it send some of those savings directly to households? Among seniors and retirees, the idea of a one-time $5,000 savings check sounded like relief that could help pay for groceries, medicine, heating bills, or maybe even catch up on bills after a tough year. As stories, videos, and social media posts repeated those figures, the notion of a DOGE dividend for everyday Americans spread fast. It resonated especially with folks who felt the pinch from inflation, rising living costs, and fixed incomes. The promise of meaningful relief, a lump sum check just in time for the holidays or winter, gave many a reason to hope. And given the dramatic numbers and the high-profile backing, it wasn't hard to believe it might actually happen. So by mid-2025, the idea was everywhere, online, on news clips, in conversations among friends and family. People were asking the same question. If DOGE saved all that money, why don't we see anything back as checks or relief? That question has stayed with many, especially older Americans who count on government programs and are careful with their budgets. In the next section, we'll look closely at what DOGE actually delivered, what the verified savings were, what turned out to be overblown, and why the much talked about $5,000 check never materialized. Where the promises fell short, savings claims versus reality. Once you look beneath the headlines and big numbers, a different story begins to emerge. One far more complicated than the hopeful savings check narrative. The alleged savings from DOGE were often based on rough estimates and optimistic projections, not firm, audited numbers. Over time, as reporters, economists, and some former government officials started scrutinizing the claims, major gaps appeared. For example, DOGE once announced that it canceled an $8 billion contract, implying a huge cut in waste. But when reviewers dug into the details, they found that the contract in question had actually been worth only $8 million. That's a tiny fraction of what had been claimed. That kind of mismatch isn't a small error. It means the public number was overstated by many times over. In fact, for several of DOGE's largest savings, analysts estimated that the real savings might have been as low as 10% of what was being advertised. But that's not all. Cutting waste sometimes came at a hidden cost. During the first 100 days, DOGE's policies led to tens of thousands of federal employees leaving their jobs. By the end of the year, more than 300,000 people had exited the federal workforce. while only 68,000 new hires filled in for them. On paper, that sounds like lower payroll costs. But in reality, agencies struggled to keep essential services running. Processes slowed. Some contracts had to be renegotiated. Temporary workers were hired. Plus, the government spent money on legal fees, transitional costs, and administrative cleanup. One accountability group estimated that just in the first few months, the disruption and related costs due to workforce reduction may have cost taxpayers as much as $135 billion. That means the effort to save money arguably resulted in extra expenses, negating much of the claimed savings. For many Americans, this contradiction explains why, despite all the talk of billions saved, they saw nothing added to their bank account. As the year went on, some of the high-profile backers began to step away. In spring 2025, Elon Musk reportedly left DOGE after disagreements with the administration over spending and taxes. Without his name and influence, the project lost momentum. By November, a top official stated that DOGE, as a centralized initiative, no longer existed. Instead, agencies were told to continue efficiency practices individually. In short, the grand, unified effort quietly faded. That decline answered a critical question. If DOGE didn't produce verified, substantial savings, and if its management and structure dissolved, then the much-hyped $5,000 check was never on any formal spending plan. No such payment was approved, budgeted, or legislated. It existed only in conversation, social media hype, and hopeful speculation. And for that reason, ordinary people never received it. In the next sections of this video, we'll talk about what this means for you now, how these changes affect benefits, services, and government programs you depend on, including timelines, realistic expectations, and where to look for official notices. What went wrong? Costs, cuts, and the real toll of efficiency. When governments try to save money by cutting staff and reducing contracts, the savings can be easy to talk about, but often hard to keep. That truth became clear in the months after DOGE started making cuts. While DOGE claimed big savings, the reality beneath the headlines showed how messy and expensive efficiency can turn out to be. In the first 100 days of the program, tens of thousands of federal workers were let go. Over the year, more than 300,000 people left jobs across federal agencies, but only 68,000 were hired back. At a glance, that looks like a major reduction in payroll costs, but it came with serious side effects. Many government offices struggled to keep up with work. Delays piled up, vital services slowed down. As workloads grew on fewer staff, agencies ended up needing help. They paid for temporary contracts, legal fees, extra overtime, and emergency fixes. These costs eroded much of the claimed savings, and in many cases may have created a net loss. One watchdog group estimated that the disruption, transitional expenses, and administrative costs from workforce reductions, already in the early months, added up to approximately $135 billion. Think about that. An amount claimed as savings turned into large additional expenses. That shift undermines the original message, and it explains why so few of those billions saved translated into anything meaningful for everyday Americans. Savings on paper became expenses in practice. By mid-2025, the impact was showing. Many services slowed, paperwork took longer, processing times increased, and some benefit support waited longer than usual. For older Americans relying on stable service, especially those who use Medicare, Social Security, or depend on federal help, this chaos added stress, uncertainty, and delays. Even if you never heard about the numbers, you might have felt the slowdown indirectly. The rush to cut expenses ended up creating a cost in time, reliability, and public trust. Government inefficiency didn't disappear, it changed shape. And worst of all, those promised $1 savings didn't come back to regular folks as relief checks or benefit boosts. Instead, those cost-cutting measures translated into delays and extra work behind the scenes. That's a reminder that big numbers and bold promises do not always result in real, helpful outcomes. DOGE fades, but the ideas linger. What it means now. By the time spring rolled around in 2025, something important changed for DOGE. Elon Musk, the public face many people associated with it, stepped away. Conflicts over spending and tax bills reportedly led to his exit. And once Musk left, the project's momentum dropped. The grand vision that had captured headlines quietly began to disappear. By November 2025, a high-ranking official confirmed what many suspected. DOGE no longer existed as a central, standalone initiative. Instead of one main office overseeing reforms, each agency was told to adopt general ideas, cut waste, reduce bureaucracy, streamline operations, but inside their own structure. The unified program was officially gone. That shift matters because it explains why no big DOGE dividend or $5,000 check ever materialized. There was no central fund, no approved payment plan, no law passed to distribute savings to households. The lofty savings numbers we heard were always based on estimates, and without a formal, audited savings pool, there was nothing to distribute. Even now, some of DOGE's ideas continue quietly inside smaller offices or state-level versions. In a few states, local governments are exploring similar efficiency initiatives, hoping to reduce waste and improve services. Inside Washington, the talk of transparency and accountability has increased. Agencies are under more pressure to track spending carefully. For you, the takeaway is simple and important. The end of DOGE as a central program doesn't mean your benefits, services, or government interactions will automatically get better or worse. But nothing will change suddenly for the better just because someone promised big savings. What remains is a call for vigilance. As services get reorganized or staffing remains thin, there could be delays, slower processing times, or stretches in urgent support. That's not guaranteed, but it's possible. On the other hand, the push for leaner government and efficiency could eventually bring improvements, less red tape, clearer communication, and a more transparent system, but likely over time and only with careful oversight. So for now, instead of expecting a relief check, a cash bonus, or a sudden drop in costs, it's smarter to pay attention to what's real: your regular benefits, official notices from agencies, and actual changes in service quality. The hope is that by staying informed, you'll recognize what's a promise, what's an estimate, and what's backed by facts. And that clarity, more than any headline, is what will help you make wise decisions in the months ahead. What this means for you: no $5,000 relief check, but real effects on services. By now you might be asking, so what does all this mean for me, as a senior, retiree, or someone paying close attention to government services? The honest answer is, there will be no $5,000 DOGE checks sent to households. That idea was never part of any official bill or budget. It came from hopeful talk, social media hype, and shifting estimates of supposed savings, but there was no formal approval, no set-aside funds, and no guarantee that any of it would reach regular people. Still, the impact of what happened beneath the surface could affect many Americans in different, less visible ways. Because thousands of federal workers left and replacements were slow, fewer, or temporary, many government services had a harder time keeping up. That meant delay in processing paperwork, slower benefits handling, and longer times to get answers or support. For someone depending on Medicare, Social Security correspondence, or veteran or retirement benefits, delays can cause stress or create uncertainty. Even though the big savings and the promise of a relief payment are gone, the pressure on agencies remains. Some offices might still have fewer staff. Some services might take longer. And while many people won't notice major problems, those who rely heavily on federal services could experience slower response times, especially during busy periods like year-end or tax season. So instead of a $5,000 check, what you get is a reminder. The government is trying to run leaner, and that sometimes costs speed, convenience, or smooth service. It's not a bonus, but it is something to watch for. It's a reason to plan ahead, to expect potential delays, and to factor in some extra time for paperwork, calls, appointments, or benefit updates. The key message here: don't look for quick payouts. Keep your expectations grounded in what is real: steady benefits, official notices, and predictable service. Those remain the foundation of financial stability for most seniors. What's next? Transparency, reform, and staying smart about promises. Even though the central DOGE program has disbanded, its ripple effects continue to shape conversations, and sometimes even state-level projects. Several local governments have begun exploring similar efficiency plans. They look at cutting redundant spending, tracking contracts more closely, and trimming bureaucracy. The hope is to improve transparency and make sure taxpayer money is used wisely. Inside the federal government, too, there's more talk now about accountability and open audits. People are asking, and some officials are promising, better reporting on how money is spent, what contracts are canceled, and whether reforms actually save what was claimed. That's important because it reminds us big numbers don't automatically mean big savings unless there's a clear, audited trail. However, reforms like this take time. They don't translate into immediate checks or payouts. Instead, they build slowly, through better oversight, stricter budget tracking, and sometimes slower, more careful decision-making. For seniors, that means change might be subtle, gradual, and not always obvious. What might look like little improvements could add up over months or years. Other effects, like lighter government workloads, could benefit taxpayers in unexpected ways. That's why staying informed matters. When you see headlines about new savings, federal reforms, or promises of cash dividends, take a moment. Ask, is this backed by law? Is there a real plan? Has money been set aside? If not, treat it as wishful thinking, not a guarantee. Right now, the most reliable things you have are your existing benefits: Social Security, Medicare, retirement, or veteran benefits, and your own financial planning. Keep paying attention to official announcements. Monitor your mail or secure portals. Consider using direct deposit or secure online tools. And when you see someone promoting big checks based on saving billions, remember, in complex systems, the road between savings and relief payments is often long, uncertain, and full of obstacles. So as the nation debates efficiency and transparency, you don't need to wait for miracles. Instead, build on what you already know works. Stay realistic, stay prepared, and stay calm. That way, you protect your finances and your peace of mind, even when big promises fade away. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I know discussions about government programs, savings claims, and benefit changes can sometimes feel confusing, but the most important thing is that you stayed curious, asked questions, and wanted real answers. That shows you care about your budget and your financial stability, and that's always the right approach, especially when you depend on fixed income or important government services. So before we close, let's remember what this December conversation really revealed. There is no approved $5,000 DOGE savings check coming to seniors or households. That idea spread from social media conversations and estimates, but it was never written into a law, a bill, or a funded program. The savings numbers mentioned publicly, from $2 trillion to $1 trillion to $150 billion to over $200 billion, were estimates, not fully verified totals. One example auditors highlighted was a contract that was promoted as $8 billion, but was actually only $8 million. That showed how large claims can sometimes become very small when carefully reviewed, and when large portions of federal staff left their jobs, more than 300,000 people exiting while only 68,000 were hired back, it created delays, disruptions, and added administrative costs. One accountability group even estimated that those disruptions cost about $135 billion in the early months. That part of the story didn't get as much attention, but it explains why the savings never reached people directly in the form of checks or relief payments, even though DOGE no longer exists as one central office, as confirmed by top officials in November 2025, when the administration clarified it was not shut down, but simply no longer centralized. The broader ideas behind it are still influencing agencies and even state-level efficiency projects in places like Florida and Idaho. That means the conversation about reducing waste and improving transparency is not truly gone, but it will likely unfold slowly, quietly and carefully in the coming years. If this video helped you understand the story more clearly, I'm glad. And if it still feels a little complicated, that's okay too. The important part is knowing this fact. Your benefits don't change based on rumors, they change based on official rules. You can always verify your payments, letters, deposits, or notices through secure official channels. And whenever you hear a big number or big promise online, you now know one of the best questions to ask yourself is, who confirmed this, and was it funded in law? I hope this breakdown helped you step into December feeling more aware and better prepared. If you enjoy videos like this, calm, clear, and honest, feel free to stay connected for the next updates. Take good care of yourself, keep asking smart questions, and remember, facts are here to support you, not stress you. I'll talk to you again soon. https doge.be ZT8 XAE EJ0